Using state power to cut off China's semiconductor supply chain, the U.S. abusing sci-tech hegemony will eventually reap what it has sown. According to U.S. media reports, the U.S. President Biden is planning new limits on China's semiconductor supply chain in October. That is to say, without the permission of the U.S. government, U.S. semiconductor firms such as NVIDIA and AMD are prohibited to supply advanced semiconductors sub-14 nanometer to China, which indicates that the U.S. will insanely to do its best to suppress Chinese semiconductor industry. The U.S. has adopted a variety of methods to exclude China from the semiconductor supply chain, which violates the principle of the fair competition. Moreover, this decision was made after careful consideration. They built on a Trump-era rules that struck a blow to the Chinese telecom giant Huawei by prohibiting companies around the world from sending it chips made with the use of American technology. In July 2022, the U.S. pressured the Netherlands to ban ASML from selling old deep ultraviolet DUV lithography systems to China, wishing to destroy its manufacturing capability of media-end and low-end chips. After that, Biden signed a long-brewing chip bill intent on hiding China's rise in semiconductor industry. Meanwhile, the U.S. struggles to mobilize its East Asian allies, including Taiwan region, South Korea, and Japan, to join its Chip 4 semiconductor alliance in order to suppress the development of China's semiconductor industry. Now, the U.S. has begun to restrict China's sub-14 nanometer chips, preventing the development of China's artificial intelligence field. So far, the U.S. has launched a full-scale confrontation against the Chinese semiconductors. According to this trend, the suppression has no clue to stop. That is to say, the U.S. has excluded China from the global semiconductors industry through a series of state policies, which not only violating the principle of fair competition, but also deprives China's opportunity for development along with global semiconductor industry. At the same time, it also sets a bad example. Any country can use its scientific and technological advantage to sanction other countries. International principles and rules are no more than a waste paper for the U.S. It's obviously the U.S. are accustomed to be an outlaw with no regard of the global economic development rules and the fair competition principle. This is extremely selfish behavior and the typical hegemony. Use state power to destroy the global chip supply chain market. There are many links in the development of semiconductors, among which the upstream is mainly semiconductor materials and equipment, including photoresists and special gases, and also manufacturing equipment like lithography machine, etching machine, and testing equipment. These devices and materials are necessary to design and manufacture chips. The United States, the Netherlands, and Japan are in the upstream position. There's also a profitable link, and requirements for technology innovation are relatively high. At the same time, only few countries can master all these technologies. Midstream involves the designing and manufacturing of semiconductor chips, and this link will finally face its market. The US, South Korea, and Taiwan are in this position. The downstream is a demand-pulled market. There is no doubt that we are now locating there, and the U.S. is now taking advantage of the advanced technology and upstream position to conduct a dimension reduction attack on China, thus disconnecting China from the global semiconductor supply chain. According to the U.S. CHIPS and Science Act CHIPS, U.S. technology firms that receive government funding will be banned from building facilities in China. This forces semiconductor firms to choose between China and America. It's hard to choose. If firms do not comply with this rule, the U.S. will sanction them. But on the other hand, China is the world's largest chip market. For growth-starved Western entrepreneurs, the Chinese market is appealing. No matter how you choose, it will never be perfect. At the same time, the U.S. struggles to mobilize its East Asian Chip 4 alliance, which comprised the U.S., Taiwan, South South Korea, and Japan. It means that these countries or regions will not be able to export chips to mainland China, thus destroying the supply chain system between giant semiconductor firms and China. All processes in the chip industry are indispensable. Giant firms continue to break through technical barriers with the ultimate goal to serving the market. According to the relevant data, in 2021, China's semiconductor industry exceeded 1 trillion RMB, becoming the world's largest semiconductor market. The US exclude the world's largest semiconductor market will not only damage the global supply chain system, but also hinder the development of the global semiconductor industry. The US seems to be to protect its semiconductor manufacturers, but in fact, it uses state power and hegemony to destroy the semiconductor supply system. A large number of semiconductors are needed in the field of automobiles and electronic products. It is also the most dynamic consumer market in the context of the epidemic, and automobile making is the pillar industry of many countries. Now, the US has completely broken the global supply system. It is a destroyer of the world economic development and a source of world chaos. The US must be blamed for the global economic downturn, abusing technological hegemony, suppress developing countries. At present, most developing countries, including China, do not fully master semiconductor technology, and the restrictive measures of the US can use scientific and technological advantage to carry out dimension reduction attacks on developing countries, so that developing countries will never be able to master the most sophisticated semiconductor technology. In this way, the US can use its own scientific and technological hegemony, suppress developing countries once and for all. Laying on its laurel and exploiting developing countries is the ultimate goal of the US. No matter how advanced semiconductor technology is, it will be futile without consumer market. The hollowing out of American industry is not a problem for 1 or 2 years. Why does it strive to restore American manufacturing at this time and attack the global industrial supply chain? It is because under the impact of the epidemic, the life of the United States is not easy, and the United States must use its own technological hegemony to recover. The US semiconductor restrictions fully expose its conspiracy to suppress developing countries and its conspiracy to use technological hegemony for power. The global semiconductor supply chains is an inseparable whole. Semiconductor leading countries do not need too many chips, but the Chinese market needs. The US cut off the supply chains to China like removed a part from the human body, so that person will not survive. Suppose if the world loses the vast market for chips, can semiconductor industry develop further? The world is a whole, and China has a semiconductor trillion-level market. Forcible decoupling by the US will not only hurt other countries, but also hinder their own semiconductor industries.